The opinions expressed by Peter Wexler, Robert Quittner, Kyle Plotkin, Michael Hart, Nicholas Hamner, and guests on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of this network. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to the subjects covered. Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management LLC, aka BCM, a registered investment advisor. BCM and Franklin Retirement Solutions are independent of each other. Insurance products and services are not offered through BCM but are offered and sold through individually licensed and appointed agents. Hi, and thanks for joining us on Solving the Retirement Puzzle. I am your host, Nick Hamner, and as they have been every week these past few weeks, joining me this week is Michael Hart and Kyle Plotkin. Like we do every week, we are going to discuss some of the topical things in the news that are relating to retirement planning as a whole, and just generally in the work we do here at Franklin Retirement Solutions. Time is of the essence, as always. Last week we ran long and nobody watched the end of the video. I know because I checked the metrics. So I am going to start us off this week, and I'm going to talk about a very important thing that we all promise to do and we all ignore. You want to guess what that is?
Just going to take a shot in the dark and say budgeting.
This is why I don't talk to you before. Of course, we're going to talk about budgeting. Budgeting is like dieting, like exercising. We all promise we're going to do it. We all say we're going to do it.
That was going to be my guess, by the way.
Yeah. It is one of those things. We all say we're going to make a budget. We're going to, New Year's resolution. I'm going to make a budget. I'm going to stick to this budget. We're going to, we're going to get better financially. We're going to save our money better. Really knock into those savings and really get that nest egg growing. And none of us do it. But it is an important thing to do. It is an important thing to do all the time, because if you don't have a budget during your working years, you're not really going to stick to a budget when you're retired. And it's one of those things you always think, I'm going to save this much and I'm going to have all this money to spend in my retirement. And no matter what your nest egg looks like, unless it's just really bad, if you have a decent chunk there, it looks like it's going to last a whole lot longer than it will. But yeah, so, and even then the common thoughts of retirement is I'm going to spend less because I'm not going to be commuting to work, and I'm not going to have to buy work clothes, and I'm not going to have to go buy lunch out while I'm sitting at my cubicle.
Yeah, my house is going to be paid off.
Yeah. But then on the other side is, when you're retired, you open up more time for expensive hobbies. Greens fees are not cheap.
Neither are grandchildren.
Yep. Grandkids. Well, one, you have more time to spend with grandkids, so you do spend more time with grandkids, and all of a sudden those are trips to Sesame Place and all those things you didn't normally do. But at the same time, the grandkids are getting older, and the older you get, the more expensive things get. More time for. So we talked about hobbies, grandkids. Yeah, you're not eating lunch out at work, but now you and your wife are home, or you and whoever you're living with are home, and you can spend more time out. You can spend more time away. You have more time for vacations. You have more time for just traveling around the country and seeing the things you always wanted to do. So you can't just accept as a default that money is going to be freer when you're retired. There's a great way to spend a whole lot of money then. And so budgeting is important, and it's one of those things nobody does, even though there's plenty of recommended strategies. I looked at 5. I want to say we've probably tried all of them at my house, and none of them work. But so the number one method, according to the article I pulled off of NASDAQ, the one recommended by Elizabeth Warren. Anybody want to guess what that one is?
It's just a shot in the dark, but I'll say it's the 50-30-20.
It is the 50-30-20. And if you're unfamiliar with what the 50-30-20 is, 50% of your budget goes to needs, 30% goes to things you want, And 20% automatically goes to savings. Next is another number featured budget. What do we think that one is? That is the zero-based budget. That is when you don't really have a budget per se, you just have a limitation. You make sure you don't outspend yourself. No matter what you bring in, you can't spend more than that.
Isn't that how life works?
Says the man who I'm sure got a credit card in college just to get the free t-shirt or pizza or whatever they were offering outside the bookstore.
Oh, I didn't just get one. I got several, and that's that's why I'm doing what I do today. I learned the hard way, so yep.
It was worth signing your life over to Sprint.
Yep. I think I did do that.
Yeah.
At one point. Yep.
MCI.
Mm-hmm.
Back when you had to pay for long distance.
Citibank.
Yeah. Forget if it was Amex or Discover that was my first one. That it was purely based on t-shirt.
Actually, so this will show my age. My first one was, remember Structure
No.
in the mall?
I thought you were about to say Diners Club.
Before it all became what is it now?
Not Banana
Express.
Republic.
Express.
Well, Express is gone now.
Yeah.
So.
It was Structure, and my limit was $100.
Wow. Did you get that when you were 18 and 1 day old?
It might have been. It would have been close. Yeah.
That would get you like a shirt and a half now, maybe.
Well, I remember when I was working at Radio Shack, the lowest.
Well, that's dating yourself already.
Yeah, very much so. I got the gray beard. It's enough. It's believable. Radio Shack, I think the lowest they would give you was $300 at $29.9. Dell, the lowest they would give you was $1,500 at $29.9. But there were a lot of those applications that ended with, you know what, we're having computer issues right now. Somebody's going to call you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But so third budget option, according to the article on NASDAQ, this one is kind of made possible by technological advances. This is called the pay yourself first, which is another common one you see recommended. What's that cult run by that Tennessee fan? What's his name?
Dave Ramsey.
That would be it. Dave Ramsey's cult talks a lot about paying yourself first. That's where you automatically put your money into savings. You can't even have a chance to touch it because it's automatically there, gone. You just file it as part of your paycheck, and you have to live off everything else. This one is probably the oldest one, this next one here, because it relies on old school tech. What do we want to think the old one is?
I was going to go with envelope budgeting.
Stop looking at the reflection of my glasses. I know that's what you're doing.
The truth is, I'm just a huge nerd.
Yeah.
So, it's all.
Well, that was accepted before we even started the podcast. So yeah.
Well, that's like the clients that are kids of Depression era parents.
Oh, yeah.
They still use it. They still use it.
Yeah, but I mean, the envelope method is exactly like it sounds like. It's you apportion your money for this, that, or the other in an envelope. You take that envelope with you when you go shopping, and that is all you have. So if you're at the grocery store, you have $120 worth of groceries, and you have $100 in that envelope, you're at the cashier handing back $20 worth of stuff.
Unless you can find $20 in the shirt pocket, which I had a client whose father passed away. And she said that they had to go through probably 100 individual pieces of clothing and found cash stashed in like 80 of them.
I believe that.
Yeah, when my granddad died, we made sure he had a $20 bill, a pocket comb, and a shoehorn, and a condom in his coat pocket with a note that said proper planning prevents poor performance. Because that was his life motto. Yeah. We're not censoring that out, by the way. That's staying in. We'll get compliance's answer on that one. Finally, and this one I think is the one we all live by the most, very similar to zero-based budgeting. This is the no-budget budget. That's where you have as many bills as you can on auto pay. You have your savings plans on auto deposit. So everything else is what you can actually spend. Don't know how well that works, but it works. I think that's the one we all work with the most. And then I was so that was the methods of budgeting. And I was looking at the issues people have with budgeting. Why?
is it so hard to budget? And I think number one, for not so much for our listeners, but for a lot of people, is just having the means in particular. It's great to say live off 50% for your necessities, but what if your necessities are 65% of your income? That throws your plan off immediately. Another one is just the ease in which we ignore our own self-controls. It's like anything, self-regulation. You give yourself a limit, you give yourself these goals, but you're the one responsible for delivering the penalties. And if you're a softie, why do you have to live by those rules? That guy's not going to follow up with anything because you're that guy.
Yep.
That's why there was a website used to be called Lose It or Lose It. It was a weight loss app, and you gave them money, and you had to weigh in every week. And if you didn't hit your weight goal at the end of that week, they kept your money and they showed you how they blew it.
That's brilliant.
It was great. They would go on canoe trips. They would just film themselves at like amusement parks. It was great ways to waste money.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that one. I heard of ones where like you essentially sign a contract and make a bet against yourself. So, if you, I'm trying to think of a good example, but like let's say, you hate, your college football nemesis is Alabama. And so you say, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in, 6 months, or I will donate $1,000 to, Alabama.
I know the
Someone
Alabama
else.
fan base very well. I know the rivalries very well, and there is no one that is a proper rival of Alabama. LSU, Auburn, Tennessee. None of those fan bases are going to lose 50 pounds or even have the money to gamble.
Sounds like one of those tattoo bets people make.
A little bit.
But yeah, you would have to, similar to what you were talking about, you'd have to weigh in every week, and you'd have to have, a third party who would verify everything.
And
So
again, you're gonna
They can be bought off too.
yeah.
well, and that's you got to find somebody who like isn't gonna, not verify your accomplishments just to spite you,
Mm-hmm.
but also isn't gonna just give in.
Right. So, and the other one, the other reason people struggle with budgets, and I think this is probably the one that is the most universal and realistic, is completeness. How do you follow a budget month to month completely when your needs change month to month? It's different when it's different. It's one thing to say, I will spend $2,500 this month because I have $2,500, and I'm just pulling that number out. But let's say your water bill is quarterly. Well, then your budget's going to change from January to February to March. Let's say you work on commission, and so some months your check is very light, some months your check is very heavy. It's difficult to do that, but it is incredibly important, not just to ensure you don't run out of money, but to ensure that when you are making a comprehensive income plan, which is one of the main components of having a proper retirement plan, is a comprehensive inflation-adjusted income plan. You have to know how much you're spending so you know how much to guarantee you have each month to pay. Because one of the benefits of a comprehensive income plan is making sure you don't run out of money. So you might not get to do all the fun stuff you want to do at a given time, but you also ensure you keep the lights on and you keep the heat on, and your basic lifestyle, the things you need to live, are covered regardless of what the market does, what else may come. And so that is one of the things we do at Franklin Retirement Solutions, is develop comprehensive income plans for our clients. We give them written income plans that are inflation adjusted. And if that's something you want to learn more about, if that's something you want for yourself, that's the time to give us a call. So you want to give us a call at 215-657-9200, or give us an email at info@franklinrs.com, all of which is handily shown below. Reach out and let us know what you need, what you're thinking about, and we will help you along. How's that for a segue?
That's very good. Very good. So I guess that's my turn now, huh?
No, I think we're going to flip it. We're going to do Mike next.
Oh, good.
Oh, am I going next?
And we're not talking about Pete Rose.
I was not expecting that.
I know.
Uh,
On your toes.
So, I brought an interesting article from the Wall Street Journal talking about the fairness of 401k matches and how the higher earners typically get obviously more of the money that's allotted for the company match. So if you look at nearly half of the $200 billion that companies contribute to workers' 401ks goes to the top 20% of earners, where the lowest workers only get 6% of that total budget for matching. So, and that's obviously pretty standard. So if we have two people and one of them is making $200,000 a year and contributing 10% to their 401k
Right.
and getting a 5% match versus someone making $100,000 a year and contributing 10% and getting a 5% match. The person making
So this is just mathematics. This isn't some evil ploy by employers.
Correct. And there's different employers have different formulas for matches. Some employers actually will do just a flat dollar match, regardless of the percentage that you're putting in. So that's a little bit more equitable.
Profit sharing plans.
Right. And then some companies will put in money even if you're not putting anything in.
Right.
So it's not really a match. It's just a contribution from the employer. So just some interesting statistics for you guys.
Is there any additional breakdown as to where the different levels are, or is it really pretty much just a scale, just a linear scale?
Yeah, it's pretty much just a linear scale. So the most common approach among plans is to match half the amount workers put into the accounts up to 6% of pay.
Okay.
So that's the average. And again, if we have two people making different incomes, the person with the higher income is going to get more from a match than the person with the lower
Well, even
income.
then, the person with the higher income is more likely to be able to afford to contribute fully, whereas the person making, a quarter of what they make, all that money's going to life expenses.
Well, exactly right. So yeah, so the person who's making more money is obviously going to have more disposable income to put towards their 401k, whereas the person who's, not making a boatload of money is going to have a tougher time, making even just the matching contribution versus, maxing it out.
So anything else to add there, Mike?
Yeah, so just a couple things. I have one stat that I think is really going to surprise you guys. But so, yeah, on average, the top 20% of earners took home 39% of the total matching contributions from companies.
Okay.
So 20% is getting almost half of that budgeted match. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Kind of sounds like a lot of other things that we see, tax wise. Where it's kind of stacked against the deck at the lower end of it.
It is. And then that's the whole thing about, and we covered this in law school a lot, and it was a difficult concept for a lot of people to grasp. Is something just, or is something fair? And is it possible to be just and not fair? And is it possible to be fair but not just?
Define fair and define just.
Exactly. But that unfortunately is one of the things when you have such a broad spectrum of people. When you try to govern them all under the same set of regulations, there is going to be a natural unfairness. And so you can say the system is broken and needs to be fixed. You can say the system is working exactly as designed. Or you could just say there needs to be multiple systems. I mean, there's numerous ways to fix it. None of them, I don't think, are ever going to be equitable.
It depends where on the spectrum we fall.
Exactly.
And that's one part of it. And number two is, are you looking out for your interest or are you looking out for the collective interest? Both,
Right.
I think, huge questions.
Mm-hmm.
And they're different for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I had an old professor that used to say the irony of democracy was those in power that could allow a true democracy are the ones preventing a true democracy under the banner of being a democracy.
Yeah.
So similar application here.
Yeah, so just one last thing, and I was actually really shocked by this. So the average 401k balance has risen from $132,000 in 2013 to $287,000 in 2023. That number, I mean, that doesn't surprise me when you factor in, market growth and everything else. But what I was shocked by is more than 60% of employees now save at the $23,000 limit.
Wow.
which is up 36% from 2015. If you'd asked me before I read this article,
How many
to
people were
guess
saving max?
what percentage of people are maxing out their 401ks, I would have said for sure less than 20%. I would have been surprised if it was less than 10%.
Probably counted on one hand.
Yeah. So to find out that well more than half, almost 2/3, are putting $23,000
hmm
a year into their 401ks, I was shocked by that number.
I'd be curious, and maybe we'll do it for next time as an update, what the buying power of what was saved in 2013 versus what the buying power is for what was saved in 2023. And how did that adjust for inflation?
Yeah.
It's an interesting question.
But we can talk about that all day long. Inflation's always fun. But we'll transfer over to you, Kyle. What do you got?
So I got an article that I pulled off of Yahoo Finance last week. Headline, Some Americans Live in a Parallel Economy Where Everything is Terrible.
Okay.
So I thought this was an interesting one. I'll just read a couple of lines from here.
Okay.
The latest gloomy indicator is a Guardian-Harris survey in which 55% of respondents said they think the economy is shrinking and 56% think we're in the midst of a recession.
Now, is that what they feel, or is that what they're being told by whatever media they're consuming?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
That I don't know. But that's more than half.
Mm-hmm.
And we know, looking at the statistics, the economy as a whole, at least from a macroeconomic level, is doing, some of the one of the best periods that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at disposable incomes and consumer spending, those numbers do not bear that out.
And a couple of other pieces here. A leading measure of small business sentiment is near recessionary levels, meaning small business owners feel as though things are not going well. Same with some consumer confidence surveys. And this one also found that 49% of respondents think the S&P index is down for the year.
So they're not even paying attention.
They're not paying attention.
Or they're being intentionally misled.
That, or the way that it feels to those, I mean, there is kind of a gap between what you would call the investor class and your average worker. And I do think it kind of goes to show the big part of that is inflation. It talks about that later in here, and how it plays into Biden and re-election and all that stuff.
But then, I mean, it's one thing to think, okay, the market's bad or the economy's bad. It's another thing to say the S&P is on the decline when it's up. That's just not paying attention.
Well, I agree, but I try to look at it from both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say you're, blue collar working in a factory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your wages have gone up, I don't know, just say the standard 3% a year. Right?
But your buying power's decreased.
Your buying power's decreased, and your wages aren't going up any further. Maybe you have a little bit in a 401k that gets invested in the market, but chances are you don't look at it very often, which you probably shouldn't. Those big gains in the stock market or, unemployment numbers being low, yada, yada, that has no impact on your life. The only thing that impacts your life is, it cost me twice as much as it did 5 years ago to eat.
Yeah.
Or my rent is up 100% from where it was in 2019.
Or gas prices, which are always popular.
And gas prices filter through the entire economy because you need gas in order to get goods places. So, the price of oil goes up, everything else is going to go up with it. So, I mean, we can argue about,
So it's a break between perception and reality.
Absolutely. Now, another interesting thing is compared to the rest of the world, however, the U.S. economy looks fantastic. No economy emerged from the COVID pandemic stronger. Inflation, caused mainly by COVID-related supply chain snafus, emerged mostly everywhere, and it's fallen more quickly in the United States than in most other places, which is also true.
Okay.
But
this is a reporter summing up the article by stating objective fact. We're out of public opinion at this point.
Right, correct. Yeah. So public opinion versus what the facts really are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, facts versus feelings.
It is facts versus feelings, but at the same time, you can kind of understand if you're not involved in that side of the economy, the investment side of the economy, or have enough money to really save anything, or you're just struggling to pay the bills every 2 weeks when you get paid.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very different world out there, and there certainly is a lot of sentiment that things are not going well. And
Yeah.
for the people that are on that side of things, it isn't going well, and it doesn't feel as though things are getting better. It feels as though things are getting worse. So to me, it just highlights kind of a detachment from Wall Street versus what we call Main Street.
Well, that's one of the things and that's why it's important that we do it. It's one of the things we do is when we meet with clients, when we're looking at their overall financial picture, it's not just, well, the market's up. It's here's what your house is worth. Here's where your savings are. Here's what your bank account looks like. It's what your overall picture looks like.
And if you only have 10% of your money that's in the market being up isn't going to really affect you.
Nor is the market being down.
Right. Correct. So it works both ways there. But if you have your money in cash or CDs or annuities or somewhere where the market is not playing into it, the market being up is going to have no effect on you. You're much more beholden to what interest rates are.
Right. So whereas someone that only deals in the stock market is really going to base their opinion of how good or bad a position you're in based entirely on how your portfolio is performing, having a realistic overall picture allows you to really get that better, a clearer view of where you actually stand.
Yeah, it's all about risk management, asset allocation. How much do you have in the market? How much do you have outside of the market in other asset classes, be it bonds, which still have some risk to them,
Mm-hmm.
stock or CDs, or some kind of annuities, depending on what they are. So asset allocation is one of the big things that I look at every meeting with clients, whether they're new people on board or people I've been working with for 10 years. That's one of the big things, and we review it every time because that really makes a difference. If let's just say the market, you want to look at your maximum potential drawdown. Say, okay, if the market loses 40%, I think that's kind of the max of what people really think you could realistically lose. Well, if you have $100,000 in the market and it goes down 40%, you're gonna be down to $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have $1 million in the market and it drops 40%, you're going to lose 400,000 and be at 6. So it really depends on the size of your nest egg overall, and then what percentage of that is actually in the market.
Right. But then again, that comprehensive view of everything, that's where you get to tell them, you get to tell folks that, what's the line? You're in good shape.
For the shape you're in.
Yeah.
Oh, and nothing's in a vacuum.
No.
No, and one of the things I was going to say, like going back to your point earlier, Nick, about the income plans that we run. One of the things that we try to do is to guarantee that no matter what happens in the market, what I like to call your minimum dignity floor, so that your basic expenses, your
Mm-hmm.
Shelter, clothing, medical expenses, food, is all covered, by what we like to call mailbox money.
Yeah.
So that even in the event that the market does take a dip, you can sleep well at night knowing that at a bare minimum, your needs are covered.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that we try to do when we build those income plans.
Right. So income planning, tax planning, market risk assessment, all of these things are part of a comprehensive retirement plan that we build at Franklin Retirement Solutions. And if you would like more information on that, that's your chance to reach out to us. Give us a call at 215-657-9200. Reach out at info@franklinrs.com. And I'm sure we will have more things to discuss next week. But until then, thank you for watching. We'll see you again.